Chapter 1561. High-Value Villas. Dana was still holding her lecture with Thor and Tessa, or perhaps it was a baby shower now. It was difficult to tell. But it wasn't something that she needed Carl for, or that he wanted to interrupt, so he made 5 more of the villa stones and headed to the resource warehouse. The bell rang as he entered, and the elderly man behind the counter gave him a bored look. This one didn't look as generous as Min Elder. I have a resource to trade to the clan. Carl began. You know the routine. Put it on the counter, and the scanner will give you a value. Carl smirked at the old man, who was clearly daydreaming. Then he sat a villa stone on the counter and waited for whatever scanner was supposed to be active to tell him what it was worth. Item identified. Immortal grade, totem rank spatial defensive device. Assessing value. The words appeared on the countertop, and then an alarm began to go off, snapping the elder out of his distracted state. What the hell? High-value artifact? Stupid thing, it's a...
No.
That really is. Son, where did you get this? It was a reward that came with my class advancement. I've got a second one, so I'm trading this one in. A reward that came with your class? Now that is fancy. Can't beat a good system reward. Now let's see what the value of this is and what it does. Villa Stone Immortal Rank, Totem Grade. Creates a hidden resting space surrounded in a durable defensive barrier. May be activated as a visible property instead of a separate space. The description was the same, though the name was different. The elder frowned, then pushed a bit of mana into the stone and vanished from behind the desk. So you needed to be holding the item or bonded to it. Otherwise, it would remain where it was. That would be a painful lesson to someone who tried to use it as a safe space and ended up abducted. When he returned, the elder had an absolutely stunned expression, and he was clutching the stone like it was his most precious family heirloom. So, what does the warehouse say that the price on that is? Carl asked as the elder seemed too lost to respond. The old man looked down at the desk, where a string of information was displayed, detailing the villa stone, and ending with an estimated turn-in price of 100 clan credits. That's a lot. I'm sure that many of our members will want one, but even at the reduced markup, it's going to be quite expensive. Carl laughed at the man's concern, but don't you think that it's worth it? That villa is basically hidden even from most immortals. How much better of a camping spot could you ask for when you're out in the field? It has all the essentials, and you can even recover there in safety with the arrays that I built in. If you're in a tight spot, it might not hide you from a search party, but it will help passers-by miss your presence. But that's not the only use for it. You can also use it in your apartment to improve your space and living conditions without splurging on a full renovation. Just putting it in a spare room gives you a whole other house within your house. The elder laughed. There are cheaper ways to renovate your house. But for a portable and hidden resting spot, this is top-notch. I can offer you the full 100 recommended clan credits for this without any issues. That is wonderful news. I just so happen to have 5 of them ready to be turned in for sale at the warehouse. And if you wait a day, I can turn in more of those strength rings for the warriors. It's been a bit of a busy week, you see. With the obelisk and all, I didn't have an opportunity to catch up on the other items that the clan is going to want. The elder frowned. What are you even planning to do with all that money? I have a beast that will need to evolve to reach immortality. So I'm going to put out a bounty on the resources that he needs. If we can get them, then my problems will be solved. That's remarkably reasonable. Most people want to get their hands on some secret resource that will cause their power to jump by a whole realm at a time. But you just want to optimize one of your beasts. That's an easier thing to do, most of the time. The dragons often do it as soon as they arrive here, sometimes even before they have stabilized their immortal spirit. I know that temptation. I've got a skill for improving my immortal spirit, but it requires killing immortals. Not exactly the most friendly of skills, even if it's the fastest way for me to grow to the peak of the immortal spirit stage. Soul-based or immortal spirit-based? Because it might be possible to send you out on a beast hunting mission before your spirit is formed, and then you can use that energy to fill your requirements. It might not be optimal, especially now. You've made a bit of a scene here in the clan, and someone is bound to leak that information to other clans and sects soon.
Carl sighed.
I know. I should have been much more subtle about my actions. It's been a recurrent pattern in my life. I get a great idea, make a spectacle, then realize that I'm just making more issues for myself, and I should have kept it private instead of telling everyone. But on the other hand, these villa stones are going to make a lot of people happy. At least you're aware that you have an issue. That's the first step. Now that you know you have a problem with oversharing, you can work on acquiring skills to set up a second identity for when you go outside. Disguise skills aren't challenging to learn for most classes, even ones that change your displayed name. Chapter 1562. To find a skill. Elder, that is excellent advice. I really should make a new identity and use a transformation skill along with a skill to hide my name or show a false one when I go out. I really should have started to do that a long time ago. Fortunately, I've got more than one transformation skill, so I can pick other appearances when I go outside, but I don't have a skill to change my name yet, so I should wait until I do before taking on missions. Carl agreed, while the old man examined the villa stone. You said you had 5 of these, right? If you trade them all now, you'll have more than enough to get a full set of rare skills from the repository for both you and your wife. Fox beastkin are common enough, but your name and appearance are fairly distinctive. The elder agreed. Yeah, I'll have to work on something that will truly hide me. The name thing is the easiest to spot. Hiding my face with an item or an illusion is easy enough. But that name is a dead giveaway. The elder smiled as Carl set the other stones on the counter, then updated his clan credit balance. 500 credits received. It's a pleasure doing business with you. Now, I'm going to run away before anyone arrives to buy those. Too many people watch the updates. The elder waved him off, and Carl activated Night Haunter to sneak out of the warehouse and over to the skill book repository. He reappeared outside the door and knocked politely before opening it. There was another elder attending the shop today, but Carl didn't know whether that was normal or not. This place was likely more secure than the warehouse or the alchemy hall, where the materials moved in and out much more frequently. Good day, elder. I have come looking for a disguise-type skill that will allow me to change the appearance of my name to other system users. Carl explained, not wasting time on long introductions. Your best bet will be imposter. You'll find it in the rare skills section, 2nd floor. Disguise skills section on the south side. If that one isn't for you, then find the one that you like and bring it here before using it, so I can accurately record the title and have the replacement made. Rare skills are 200 clan credits each, but if you can find a common grade version, it's only 10. Thank you, elder. I will head up now. The old man nodded and went back to his reading, while Carl entered the main hall. It was set up as any other library, only the entire contents were skill books, scrolls, and a few artifact-grade items that should grant skills when used. It was practically heaven for Kara. One day, she would come in here and rearrange everything. Carl first went to the common grade skills on the 1st floor and quickly found that there were no section labels for anything, and they were organized mostly by the class that could use them. Skill books were mostly designed so that a certain base class could use them, and then advanced classes could use one or more base class types of skill books. For example, druids could use cleric and ranger books. Stop. There is a book here that we must have. Kara insisted, once she realized she couldn't come out of her space within the repository. Carl turned to where she was indicating and began to laugh as he read the title. Vicious Mockery inflicts mental damage on affected targets. Carl took the book off the shelf and tucked it under his arm while he looked for the skill he had actually come for. There was no way that wasn't a good skill, and someone in the group had to be able to use bard skills. Being a beast master really was a cheat code in that way. He could use what the beast could use, and with a varied team like this, he could use nearly anything. Specialization has advantages too. Can you imagine fighting someone with a whole herd of lightning Sero, or those things that shared a barrier? Kara joked. They would be the ultimate tank. Unfortunately, he didn't know that skill, or he would teach it to Dana so that she could use it to tweak her golem army. Nothing would be funnier than watching arrogant immortals face the fluffy-eared mage girl with invincible golems. The absolute frustration before they were hacked into tiny little pieces would be glorious. And the ears wouldn't even get dirty. Tion agreed. Carl found the section with the rogue skills, including a half-dozen different variations of the disguise skill. However, when he examined them, he got a system error message informing him that he could not use that skill. That was also new. Usually, you only found out after you tried to open it. So, he went up to the second floor, looking for the imposter skill, but not holding out much hope. If the system didn't consider Ray to be compatible with rogue skills, he could be in trouble trying to find a skill that would give him a new name. He could try changing his title when he went outside, as that was how many of the others saw him. That might buy him a bit of time before anyone from another clan or sect identified him, assuming he changed his appearance. He wouldn't assume it would take long. There were only so many appearances he could give his group. They were a pretty distinctive lot, and he never really traveled alone. There it was. The moment he had been waiting for. Skill unusable. Avatars are not eligible for anonymity. Well, that explained why he couldn't use the other disguise skills. His skills had made him an avatar of the world dragon, and the gods did not approve of hiding your affiliation with them. Chapter 1563. Where are the good books? If he couldn't use a skill to hide who he was, Carl knew that his best option was going to be to change his title when he went out and use a more obscure form so that he wasn't immediately recognized. He didn't know what percentage of others would be able to see his name with the mixed systems in this world. But the ones born here could. That was a pretty significant portion of the population that he wouldn't be able to easily fool. Perhaps it would be better to just embrace it and go out as a world dragon? At least that way there wouldn't be any unnecessary questions. Carl wandered the aisles, looking for something that would be worth taking back home to learn, without really knowing what it was that he was looking for. Anything that he could possibly want was available here somewhere. But at this point, Carl had no idea what he even needed for skills. His new class had a pretty good variety of abilities, and he hadn't even started to buy anything out of the skill tree yet. So, it wasn't a rush to get books, unless they were something extremely useful. Everything that he was seeing was an alternate version of something that he already had, so Carl went looking for the utility or life skill section of the building. They had to have something. This place is brutal. They've got like 10 shitty versions of Illusionary Domain just in one section of the shelves. Opal complained as she watched from her space. I think we set our expectations too high. All the really good stuff is over rare grade, so it's hidden somewhere else. Carl, go upstairs again and see what you find. Kara agreed. Fine, I will go see what there is. But there is no guarantee that we have enough money for the really good stuff. Remember that we just got lifetime royalties for one of the good things. Kara considered that. It's fine. If it's new, it's good. But none of the stuff is new. It's new names for old stuff. There is a whole shelf dedicated to how to cast Fireball. Hawk laughed. He wasn't mad. Learning Fireball was the best thing that they could be doing with their lives, as far as Hawk was concerned. But he was amused that they had come up with so many different ways to teach something so simple. There are so many nearly identical books in here. It's a bit silly to need so many copies, but I guess there is no unified skill for teaching skills other than the one that we've already got. Opal noted. And we don't even know if that will work on all the other systems. Carl agreed. For all he knew, it might only work on people from his own home world. The top floor of the repository was up a spiral staircase, but it was blocked off with a barrier and a sign that informed them that an escort by the elders was necessary to access the good stuff hidden on the other side. It was also blocked from Kara's inquisitive gaze, though she would normally have enough leeway in her point of view to see most of it from her space. Well, this place is a bust. Let's just head out, I guess. Kara sighed. Find me some more music skills. I want music skills. Tion insisted. What do you want music for? Music causes dancing. Fluffy things can't resist the urge to dance. So, knowing more music will bring all the fluffy things to me. The little fox insisted. So, you want to be a singing healer? Kara joked. Ooh, that's not bad. With fox charms, I bet that I could be a really good one. Just mix holy light into my songs, and it would make everyone happy and healthy. And they wouldn't be able to resist coming over with the aura of an immortal divine fox around. Leo looked around, waking up from a multiple day-long nap. Where are we? Oh, so many books. You should get me some good ones. Go to the defensive warrior books. Carl made a turn to see what the bard and warrior sections had that he didn't already have a suitable skill for. Leo could likely use at least one or two of his own defensive skills, and perhaps an attack other than Gravity Slam. He could use most of the other skills that Carl had, but not many of them were actually designed for a defensive warrior. Assuming he was going to be humanoid at some point, so he could use most of these skills. He didn't have fingers to hold weapons. He couldn't use a shield or most other accessories. So it really was just damage absorption and barriers that he needed. Now that Carl really looked at him, Leo was growing at an astounding rate. He was already larger than Ray, though it was difficult to tell with him floating in the water. His back was sprouting various plants, and he was beginning to resemble the name False Island Giant Turtle. If he used the Behemoth skill, he would be a truly formidable combatant, despite his youth. Carl didn't actually know how large the turtle was supposed to get, but it wouldn't surprise him if the species was actually ridiculous in size. How Leo would function in his natural form if he was a kilometer across was questionable. But at least he could transform into a humanoid to come out and play with the group. Oh, there are good ones for warriors. See, there is stone form, invincible defense, and even Thor's bulwark skill is here. I can use that one, no need for another book. But the other two sound good. If I combine those with the skills that I already know, I should be able to block anything with my shell. Then I just need an equivalent to flip or swat to use with a human weapon. Carl chuckled at his annoyed tone. Well, I've got Crushing Blow, which is a good one for using a blunt weapon. That would be all right. Between that and Gravity Slam, Leo would have at least the basics of a combat skill set until the turtle could get into an actual fight and decide what style he wanted. Chapter 1564. Leo in the Wild. All three of the books that they had gathered were common grade books. Given that sad state, Carl realized that he might need to tweak them a little bit with Skill Merger, and hopefully a bit of luck from Skill Master as well. If he could at least turn them into rare skills, they would be much more useful than these base warrior skills. But they had 3 skills for only 30 clan credits. Now they just needed to find a musical skill for Tion and they could go. Oh, there is another good one. Get me that one. Leo insisted. Carl turned to see what the turtle wanted, and found that there was a druid skill named Healing Breeze on the shelf. Again, a common healing skill, but one that they didn't have, and Leo was certain that he could use it. Carl added it to the stack, then went to see what had caught Tion's attention. String Instrument Prodigy looked like it should give the knowledge that he needed, then Tion would just need music sheets, or some creativity. Alright, are we done shopping now? Carl asked, speaking out loud, as he scanned the shelves for more useful stuff. At the door, the elder shook his head in dismay as the strange young man started to talk to himself again. He had been doing that on and off the whole time that he was inside, to a greater extent than even sending system messages to another clan member would explain. Alright, what have you found? That's a pretty varied collection. If someone is pressuring you to buy them skill books with your points, I can refuse on your behalf and talk to them about the rules. The elder informed him. Tion came out and grabbed Vicious Mockery as well as String Instrument Prodigy from the stack. That made the elder smile. I see how it is now. You're a ranger type. I likely should have remembered that. I seem to recall seeing you in court once before. If you're buying for your bonded beasts, it makes more sense that the skills are all over the place. Alright, that's 40 credits. You can use the books right here, if the beasts fit indoors. Leo came out of his space and settled on the street outside the repository. Oh, a hatchling false island turtle? He's going to be a force of nature once he's grown. I do hope that you have a skill to keep him fed. By the time that they get to supreme rank, they're nearly 50 kilometers across, and the food requirement, if they're not in the ocean, is beyond what any natural setting can provide. Carl nodded. Indeed I do. I prepared all the necessary skills to keep him fed and happy as he grows. In the tiny world, Thor whistled in appreciation. He might be a behemoth, but 50 kilometers across? That was just crazy talk. Especially when you were turtle-shaped. A 50-kilometer long snake was massive. But a 50-kilometer turtle was a mobile city. Good thing they had unobtrusive Behemoth to help him keep his size under control, so he wouldn't have to transform just to do basic things. Their baby turtle was growing up fast, and he was even picking his role in the group. Now, if Leo could learn to use mirror images, it would be extra funny. Tion learned his skills and did a little happy dance on the counter, celebrating his victory. Then Leo learned stone form and invincible defense, and transformed, so he could add a ruined building on his back to go with the plants. It wasn't much of a building at his current size, but it was a great start. Does he know how to transform? The skill repository elder asked. Leo nodded and transformed into a small tortolan child, barely waist-high on Carl, with a grassy shell on his back and an armored chest. He equipped himself with a pair of boots and a tricorn hat before nodding in satisfaction. His armored form didn't go well with common clothing, so this would be enough. Well, hello, young turtle. Might I know what your name is? The elder asked in a gentle voice. I'm Leo. It's a pleasure to meet you. You already knew that I am going to be the group's new defensive warrior. My big brother used to do it, but he's busy being a dad. The elder laughed. Leo's species were terrible parents. They mostly left their eggs on a shore somewhere, and if the hatchling lived, it lived. Oh, I haven't seen another false island turtle in a long time. The elder noted. Brother Thor is a behemoth. We're not blood brothers, but bond brothers. Did you know that behemoths take 1 less point of damage for every day that they've lived? That's a pretty cool skill. If I was 1,000 years old, I bet that I would be invincible with that skill. The elder nodded in agreement. Indeed, little one. But if someone taught it to the clan leader, I bet she would be invincible too. She's at least 1,000 years old. Leo frowned. But she's kind of small. Even I'm bigger than she is. Is it size that determines that? The elder joked, treating Leo as the small child he was, despite his mental advancement being accelerated by the bond with Carl. Must be. The Dana mage is soft and fluffy and small. Tion is soft and fluffy and small. Kara doesn't count, and Sister Ray is much less soft and much harder to damage because she's bigger. Then there is the Carl, and he's too tough for anyone to beat up. Leo informed him. You're certainly right. The bigger ones are much tougher. Carl smiled at the pair. Elder, there was one thing that I didn't find in there. There were no skills for forming the immortal spirit. The elder shook his head. I don't believe that anyone has a book for that. It's either in your skills, or you have to do it the hard way. But if you go talk to the monk elder, he can likely guide you on the right path. He's studied most of the power matrix styles, and he will know how to get started on your immortal spirit. You've managed to help your beasts do it, so it shouldn't be impossible once you learn the trick. Who has their spirit formed? Carl asked, confused. The elder stared at him for a second. The Chaos Badger does for certain. And so does this tiny fox. Chapter 1565. Leo needs education? Where do I find that monk elder? Carl asked. If he wasn't even able to properly determine which of his beasts had fully formed their immortal spirit, he was missing something fundamental in the process. Then he should be able to get the monk to tell him how to start transforming it, so he could start on the Void Immortal stage. Leo poked Carl. I need bling. Do you have any of those warrior rings? I will make you some when we get home. I'm sure that Ray will have something for you as well, so that hits don't get to your shell directly. Carl replied with a smile. Leo nodded in satisfaction. He rather liked it out here. The air smelled different from his space. More like people, even if it smelled less like food. While he was standing there, enjoying the day, a woman in white robes stopped next to him and reached down to take his hand. Young man, are you new here? You should be in school right now. She insisted in a stern tone. Leo looked up, confused. Yes, I'm new. But I don't go to school yet. Nonsense. You're clearly old enough. Now, let's get you to class and then contact your parents. Do you have a sibling in the school? Leo realized there was a vast misunderstanding here. They thought that he was Tortolan because of his appearance. But he decided to play along. My big sister Kara attends the school. I'm sure that she will vouch for me when we get there. Really, I'm still too young for school. Leo insisted in his best innocent tone. Come along, then. We will find your sister and contact your parents about the importance of education. I will meet you there. Kara laughed as Leo happily walked away with the teacher. Ray, make sure she's not trying to abduct your little brother. Carl insisted. On it. But she is a teacher. I know her from when Kara was first pranking them. Kara laughed. It will be good for Leo to get out anyhow. His species is naturally immortal. He's just young. So, I don't think that they will pick on him much. Besides, he has all the powers you would expect a young Tortollan warrior to have, so he can even participate in combat training class. That did sound fun to Leo. He'd never been humanoid before, and it was an all-new experience to him. Distracted by the chatter in her head, Dana stopped her chat with Tessa to focus on what was going on around Carl. Seeing Leo happily being led away while asking questions about school, and if he would get to play with Sister Kara, was enough to make her giggle. That teacher had no idea what she was in for. Tessa gave Dana a curious look as Thor began to laugh. Leo came out to learn a skill and was collected by one of the school teachers, who thought that he was skipping class. So, he decided to play along, and now they're putting him and Kara in the same class. I don't know how that's going to work out, but Kara is planning to help him cheat on his tests if she has to. Dana explained. Thor winked at her. She won't have to. Thinking hard enough about a problem makes the others think of the answer, if they know it. Dana realized that was true. Many of the insights that came to her mind were not her own, but someone else on the team's. It subtly affected how she would think, as the ideas weren't always based on her own logic and knowledge. Insidious. Definitely Kara's doing. Why do I get blamed for everything? That was a thing before I even got here. I just balanced things out a bit, so that Thor's open and honest ways didn't get Carl into so much trouble anymore. Dana motioned for Thor to explain to Tessa why she was laughing. Carl was still entirely too honest for his own good. He just blurted out the answer when you asked him questions. It was adorable, but if he wasn't such a monster in combat, it would certainly have been a major issue before now. In the skill repository, the elder stared at where the false island turtle had just been dragged away by a teacher, without even asking if his parent was inside the building he was standing in front of. Are you not going to do anything about that?
Carl shook his head.
Nope. The Chaos Badger is in school today, and the teachers can deal with whatever happens when you put the two of them together. It's late enough in the day that it's almost time for combat training. The elder smirked and took out a small clay gourd. He poured 2 shots of what smelled like strong plum wine and offered one to Carl. Here's to trolling the dragons. May it never get old. Carl drank and felt the burn of immortal energy from the drink. Oh, that stuff is good. Is there somewhere in town that I can buy it? The elder nodded. This is expensive, but there is a wide variety available over at the distillery. It's on the east side of town. If you're headed to see the monk, you can't miss it. His place is right next to the distillery. The monks are both the brewers and the best customers. Tion delicately sniffed at the cups. The plums smelled good, but he couldn't understand why anyone wanted to ferment them, even if it added magical essence to them. That was too much like Remy's potions, and they did not taste good at all. But Remy didn't care. She had progressed past the need to be concerned about the taste of the potions. Everything that she produced these days was so effective that she could let Kara lick it, and people would still willingly eat it. Kara didn't think that was a bad idea. Licking a whole building full of alchemy products should have fun side effects. Chapter 1566, Appropriate Payment. Carl left the skill books behind him and headed for the monk elder's place to get the plum wine and to learn about the possibilities of forming an immortal spirit without using a skill. Dana's was nearly finished now, so he needed to catch up. The elder's place was a bit different than most of the others in town, as it was actually a converted temple to some unknown god, made of simple slate blocks, but intricately carved in strategic locations. Elder? I was informed you might be able to help me with my immortal spirit. Carl called, unsure which of the powerful presences was the elder himself. A teen boy came to the door and bowed politely. My apologies, sir. The elder is not in right now. He is helping the clan leader copy a skill book. The boy apologized.
Carl sighed.
So, it's my fault that he's out. I was the one that sold them that skill book. Do you mind if I wait for him? I will make him a gift to make up for delaying his work. The boy nodded. Please come this way. There is a sitting area. Carl followed the young monk into a sitting room and found that it was already occupied by a few young monks who were writing out scrolls. Some were combat buff scrolls, a single-use item. Most were doing their homework. The practical answer. Carl took a seat as the young man returned to his duties, and Tion grabbed him a stack of paper from the table, along with an enchanted pen. Thanks. Now, what should I give him? Shatter. That seems like the sort of thing that monks would like. Carl decided. Shatter, physical strikes cause vibrations through the opponent's body that damage organs and may break bones. The skill book wasn't a long one, but the skill was incredibly useful for unarmed combatants. Any sort of warrior, really. But especially the monk classes, Carl assumed. As he picked up the pen, Carl noticed that it was enchanted to imitate a number of magical resources in the ink. Presumably the ones that were the most common for inscriptionists. However, he did not need those, as he would be using the skill book ability and a runecrafting a skill to make sure that the book was successful.
It was much easier that way.
A few of the monks looked up when Carl entered, as they didn't know him. But he was working hard, the same as they were, so nobody interrupted him until an hour later when Carl finished the writing and activated skill book to form it into a usable item. Only then did a few of the other monks come over to speak with him. You've got quite the writing skills. Most of the new arrivals get hand cramps after only a few pages, but it is clear that you've done that more than once. Plus, you didn't need to do anything to the page to get it to work like some with lesser inscription skills need. Carl smiled. I've seen all sorts of methods, including sprinkling magical resources over the pages and using special inks to make the skill book work. Fortunately, I've got fairly decent skills, but my actual skill is an inscription. It's a lesser version of it, where I can only copy skill books that I already know. I can't create ones that I can't use. The monk winced in sympathy. Well, that is a bit of a restriction. But it looks like you came from a mortal world because you're not starting out with just a handful of basic skills and immortal realm power.
Carl hadn't thought about it that way.
A young immortal born in an immortal world would naturally have very few skills, but what the mortal worlds would consider an insanely high power level. He wondered if that was a large cause of the invasions of the mortal worlds. Could young immortals sick of being bullied be taking out their frustrations on others? It wouldn't surprise him if that was a large part of the issue. I heard that you were waiting for the elder. Was there something in particular that you needed? I'm not an elder, but I have been training here for 100 and some years.
The monk asked.
I am looking for a training method that will let me start building my immortal spirit. I don't have a class skill for it, but I do have a rather advanced power matrix, formed on the 5-dimensional shape of a chaos dragon.
Carl explained.
When you say advanced, how much are we talking? 8 or 9 points doubled within the 4th dimension. 72 points, doubled in the flow of time. The monk whistled. Oh, yeah. Now that's a big boy level of mana manipulation. Alright, it shouldn't actually be difficult to get your immortal spirit to form. And I should be able to explain the technique well enough that you can get started on the Void Realm transition as well. Carl nodded. If you can teach me, this skill book is yours. What does it do? Causes vibrations through the body that damage the internal organs and bones. It's highly effective for targeting through physical shields and armor. Not so effective for skill shields or energy barriers. But if they're tight to the body, it will still work. The monk nodded happily. I will gladly accept that payment for training. Behind Carl, someone cleared their throat, and the monk went a bit pale. Elder, I didn't realize that you were back. How did your mission in the clan leader's hall go? Quite well. We managed to get 3 working copies of the book, all for different systems. Now, what is this about training a new acolyte? The elder replied. Carl asked for a bit of help forming his immortal spirit, and I was about to help him with the technique for dragon-based power matrix awakenings. The elder shook his head and looked at the book on the table. And let me guess, the payment was a skill book for a previously unknown skill? The monk raised his hands in defeat. It's not like that. Shatter is an unknown, just expensive. Carl gave the man a sympathetic look, then turned to the elder. I am not trying to step on anyone's toes here. If you've got first claim, I'll happily offer you the chance and the payment. Chapter 1567. Spirit-forming options. The elder considered the situation for a moment, then nodded. All right, you go ahead and teach him. If it doesn't work, or there are issues, call for me, and I will ensure that his progress doesn't stall. You are taking a personal interest in his progress, elder? One of the other monks who had been doing inscription work asked. There was a whole stack of single-use scrolls and talismans next to him, so he had been busy for some time, and the note of envy was clear in his voice. The elder nodded. The sect leader has insisted that we look after him well. His power level is immense, and she sees a possibility that his advancement will benefit the clan as a whole. The monk looked skeptical, but he had no way to know of all the commotion that had been going on within the clan. Even the elders had only paid cursory attention to most of what was told to them. The immortals who were in training hadn't even realized that anything had changed. It wasn't uncommon for them to spend months without contacting others. So 1 or 2 days of events wasn't anything noteworthy. They would find out about it eventually. They had eternity to live, so if the threat alarms didn't go off, many wouldn't even bother to read their notifications. Since it's clear that you don't know yet, as your class is a World Dragon System class, but you haven't advanced, this man is the avatar of the World Dragon. He created a class change obelisk at the old World Dragon Temple, and hundreds of clan members have already managed to get a new class. The clan leader has high hopes for him, so she is willing to invest time into his advancement. The monks who had been working in the room all paused what they were doing to let the elder's words sink in. You're saying that there is a way right now to advance our classes, just by using an item? One of them asked cautiously. Indeed. Not everyone qualifies. You have to possess a suitable system, and you need to have multiple skills outside your skill tree, or a particularly outstanding skill outside your skill tree to qualify for a change. But if you meet those standards, there is no reason that you shouldn't try. I know that most of you filled your tree long ago, and now you're just looking for opportunities. Well, this is one. What does it cost? Nothing, as far as I know. It's been built as a service of the World Dragon Temple on the temple grounds, but where we can reach it outside the barrier. So you're free to go there and try. The elder explained. And that was how Carl ended up with the elder and one reluctant scribe, alone in the building. Go. I will get the instruction from you later. Carl offered, and the young monk smiled. I will teach him the technique. But you can have the skill book if you need it. Having Shatter might be enough to give you a better option of classes to advance to. Don't be in a rush to pick something just because it's different. Make sure that it is better than what you have. The elder warned. Thank you, elder. The young man replied, then ran out of the building clutching the Shatter skill book. You're totally going to make him pay for that book later, aren't you? The old monk smirked at Carl and tapped his nose. He's been helping out here for a century. I suppose that he's earned at least that much of a perk. Besides, I can just make another copy if I need it. The monk had a point. He was an inscriptionist and he knew the skill. There was no good reason why he couldn't have made a copy for the man earlier and given it to him, other than wanting him to keep working hard on his own to gain opportunities. Follow me to one of the quiet rooms. It's better to explain it there, where nobody will interrupt the energy flows trying to mimic my teachings. It won't work for most of them anyhow, as you have a dragon-based power matrix. Might I ask why you chose the Chaos Dragon? The lone supreme who guided my home world was a Chaos Dragon. As the most powerful being that I knew, it was only right that I patterned my power matrix after her. A female supreme-ranked Chaos Dragon, was it? Supreme Lady Matilda. Though now I suppose she's the legendary Lady Matilda, as she advanced. Carl agreed. Ah, I know who you mean. She's quite the character. The clan leader is a friend of hers, so she has visited a few times since I arrived here. But that helps because now I know exactly how you designed your matrix. Might as well get comfortable. This could be either very fast or very slow, depending on your mental strength and comprehension rate. Carl saw that the room had a modified runic circle that appeared to gather energy, but convert it from raw immortal energy into something else. It must be specific to this process, making it easier to form an immortal spirit. Or perhaps it was for the next stage, where you started to convert your immortal spirit into something that was more than a ghost of power. Close your eyes and focus on the space where your power matrix is. In that area, you will want to start forming a ghost of soul energy. Not immortal power, soul energy. Condense it until it remains coherent, and keep adding to it. At first, it is going to want to dissipate back into your soul. That is where the power matrix becomes relevant. Instead of letting the energy return to your soul, pull power from the matrix, evenly from every point, and use it to bind the small ball of energy. You're going to want to continue that process until you have one of two things. Either a perfect replica of yourself, or a perfect replica of the concept that you based your power matrix on. Now, if you were a dragon, these would normally be very close to the same thing. But as you are, there is a choice. Either make it into the ghost of a human, with the points of your power matrix at the meridians, or as many of them as you can with the points that you have, or make it into the shape of the Chaos Dragon. But before you start, know this one thing. The shape that you give your immortal spirit will affect everything that you do after this during your journey through immortality. Also know that there is a third option. For the devoted of the gods, it is possible to form your immortal spirit in the shape of their avatar. Choosing the World Dragon as your immortal spirit will permanently link you to that one deity, but it will also make the transformation process of the Void Immortal stage easier. Transforming from raw soul energy to divine energy is the most common Void stage method for clerics, you see. But you have to choose now before you start. If you choose wrong, you'll have to shatter your immortal spirit to start over, and not everyone is capable of even beginning to reform it after that happens. I believe you have met Jeff, the divine lightning dragon, who had his immortal spirit forcibly destroyed. That is the risk that starting over carries, so take your time to choose. Chapter 1568. Spirit Technique. Carl sat on the soft cushion and thought about the three options that he had been given. To make his immortal spirit into the form of a human, a chaos dragon, or a world dragon. There was no doubt that using Matilda as the basis for his power matrix was the correct choice. It was still serving him well, and it would far into the future. It also wouldn't interfere if he chose one of the other two options. Somehow, after spending so much time in other shapes, choosing to make his immortal spirit in his true form as a human didn't seem right. Well, as a mostly human, because with his constitution, that status was up for debate. So, the real question was if he was going to go for the World Dragon or the Chaos Dragon as the design. Trying to mimic Matilda wasn't a bad choice. He knew that it would make it to Legendary. He had the template to follow. But the World Dragon form was based on an actual deity. And it was the deity that created many of the universe's systems. That couldn't be a bad choice. Though, he did have other options for shape. Building the immortal spirit in the shape of the cat demon or Tengu would be a weird choice, but he could see how they would work. The cat demon form did feel more natural than making it human, but it still didn't feel quite right. The best choice seemed to be the World Dragon or the Chaos Dragon. He had the Chaos Dragon constitution, while he was an avatar of the World Dragon. Changing classes hadn't altered that. As he focused, Carl saw a vision of another form, a tentacled monstrosity. How that would be appropriate, he couldn't tell. But it must be related to his new class. Carl focused on trying to visualize the World Dragon's form in every dimension, so he could integrate it with his power matrix. It was a different shape than the Chaos Dragon, but it was compatible. The real difference was that when he focused on the Chaos Dragon, he saw Matilda, not himself. He was trying to be the best immortal he could be, not the biggest, sexiest Chaos Dragon in existence. The thought made him laugh a little, but Carl was so lost in his mind that he didn't notice that the room was flooding with divine power as something from the greater realms turned its attention on him. Maybe the answer was chaos? He could gather the soul energy and then guide it into whatever form felt most natural for it to take. The first step was gathering anyhow, and then he would bind it to his power matrix after to keep it from dispersing. The real question was where he was supposed to pull it from. Was he supposed to transform it? There was a runic circle in the room that might be for that. The haint nudged his mind. Both her and the Sword of Champions had huge amounts of stored soul energy that they weren't using. They were weapons they only advanced as their wielder did. They didn't need to go through any sort of process. So the energy they had was all for him to make them stronger with. Plus, they were already both sentient weapons. They didn't even need his skills, unless he was going to try to bump their quality up another grade. Karl formed a runic array in his mind, intended to transform immortal energy into soul energy using a runic description and a combination of both Tion and Leo's versions of healing. Nature and holy magic working together should do it, he hoped. Slowly, he began to draw the spare energy from the two weapons, forming an amorphous cloud of energy in the space. He let it form and twist as it wanted, as long as it didn't dissipate. The natural shape seemed to be vaguely draconic. It had wings and a tail for certain. That was good enough for Karl, and he began to shape the energy enough that it would link to the many points of his power matrix. He didn't want to take too much from the weapons. They would serve as the reserve when he was close to the end and needed a final push to complete the process. So, he drew from outside and let his makeshift conversion matrix transform the energy in the room into soul power. A tidal wave of power hit him like a tsunami, rattling Karl's mind enough that he nearly lost control of the process. Assuming that he had simply miscalculated, Karl focused his mind to keep the power flowing at the only rate that he could keep stable and let the converted power fill the matrix to flesh out the immortal spirit. It felt a lot like divine power and nature magic, but that was likely inevitable. He had used those two sorts of magic in the array, so there might be some impurities in the soul power that he was refining from the room. But it was working. The power was stable, and it was adhering to the power matrix in all 5 dimensions, giving him a coherent immortal spirit, even if it was still pretty wispy. The power wasn't stopping, and Karl was beginning to wonder if the conversion from immortal energy to soul energy was a much higher flow rate than this process was designed for. After all, the mana pool of an immortal was vastly larger than their mental energy reserves. He should have put more time into the risk assessment part of this process, instead of assuming that the array in the room worked the way it appeared to. If there was a hidden flow limiting rune in there that he had missed, he would really look like a crazy masochist to the Elder watching him flood himself with power. The Elder who was watching in awe as Karl siphoned the divine power in the room, as well as most of the mana, to do the gods only knew what. He had never seen anyone do something like that when they were supposed to be shaping their soul energy to bind it to their power matrix. Chapter 1569. Energy is energy, right? That was a part that Karl had missed in the explanation. He had heard soul energy and assumed that whatever he could get his hands on was fine. The Elder had assumed it was only common sense that you used your own soul energy to form your immortal spirit. So, he hadn't seen the need to spell it out. Naturally, Karl had no idea that after binding his immortal spirit to all the points of his power matrix and giving it shape, it was technically finished. It had a shape, it was stabilized, and the spirit was permanently linked to him, protecting his soul and power from attacks. Without that knowledge, he simply didn't stop and flooded the spirit with power until it felt like a proper spectral being and the power influx slowed. Finally, he opened his eyes, pleased that he hadn't had to burn through the reserves in the haint to complete the task. Welcome back. How did it go? The Elder asked slowly. Good. The runic array that I used to gather more power to convert was a bit flaky, and the flow rate was wrong, but I got that all sorted out and I've got the spirit to adhere to all of the power matrix points. You were right, the actual formation process wasn't too bad. Picking the right form was the hard part, and after that, it was just a matter of getting enough energy to make a spirit. The Elder nodded. He had seen all sorts of strange things over the years, and this one felt like intervention by a powerful being that had some level of divine lineage. For a beast master type class, that might be normal. Maybe. How large did you manage to get the immortal spirit before it stabilized? The Elder asked, ready to move on to the next step. That's hard to say, the mental space is a bit odd that way. But I directly overlaid it on the power matrix, with a change of shape, as I chose to model it after the world dragon, so it should be the size of a supreme ranked chaos dragon. And how faint is the energy between the points? Not too bad. It feels a bit like a spectral entity. Not solid, just energy. but cohesive enough that I would be able to clearly identify it. The elder hummed for a moment as he considered the possibilities. Do you mind if I look into your spirit for a moment to verify that status? If it is that dense, I believe that you could move on to beginning to transform it. That was excellent news for Carl. Starting on the void realm of immortality today would be a huge step ahead. And everyone made this sound so hard. Go ahead. If there are issues, I should still be able to make some tweaks without causing issues for myself, he agreed. The elder put a hand on Carl's forehead and looked into his mental space, only to be horrified at the utter chaos that he found. Yes, there was a power matrix there, but there were also a number of linked separate spaces with power flowing in every direction, a pair of weapons, a soul bond, a system link, and the divine bond that was customary for all avatars. Plus what looked like an inactive black dragon inheritance. It wasn't a mental space, it was a disorganized storage closet, and it was a wonder that the man could form a coherent thought. That didn't mean it wasn't powerful, though. The power matrix was absolutely stunning, a masterpiece of mental discipline that had created a mind-bending monstrosity of chaos and incomprehensible interdimensional links. With a perfectly formed immortal spirit layered over the top in a slightly different pattern that still somehow met with all the essential points of the power matrix. How that worked was a mystery. The two dragons didn't even have the same number of wings. But it did. The elder retreated before he was tempted to try to understand. It would only damage his own progress and give him a headache. Perfect. That is more than strong and stable enough to begin on the next step. What you need to do now is convert that immortal spirit from raw soul energy into something else. What you choose will be the basis of your void realm mental defenses, so I recommend choosing an energy form that you understand well. Now, it will still be an immortal spirit, part soul energy and linked to both your soul and your power matrix, but the energy will no longer be a raw and unrefined sort. Do you understand? Yes, I get it. Keeping the core essence of soul energy, but enhancing it with an elemental affinity or other sort of power so that it can do more than simply exist as a soul, right? The elder smiled.
Exactly.
If only everyone could understand the concept as easily as you, I would be out of work. I don't think that you have to worry about that, elder. Most of the reason that I get it is because I already know how to use soul-based attacks, and I learned to layer other skills over them to make them more effective. Soul Siphon with Chaos Vortex is a particularly nasty combination. Carl offered. That sounds like a crime, and I don't even know what the combined effect would be. The Chaos Badger came up with it. But I think that I know what I want to do for my immortal spirit. The greatest advantage that I have isn't my affinity for chaos or raw power output. It's my regeneration, both physical and metaphysical. So, if I imbue my immortal spirit with the essence of regeneration, I should be able to turn it into something that will passively bolster me, right? The elder nodded. That is a valid theory. The immortal spirit of a void realm immortal is a passive buff, of sorts. For most, it's an extreme resistance to something specific, but if you have the comprehension to make it into a regeneration effect, that would also be suitable. Chapter 1570. Pick a flavor. In a way, the mental space was its own world. It had rules, stuff in it, and now he was adding aspects to the immortal spirit that would help him in the future, like a natural resource. So it was only right that he applied the principles of reality warp and world crafting to his own immortal spirit to make the changes. Not the skills, obviously, but the concept behind them. If he imbued his immortal spirit with the fundamental rules of life, creation, and mana manipulation, with a focus on regeneration, he should be able to turn it into a massive lake of power that would passively heal him in mind and body. Actually, he had shaped it like the world dragon, so making the essence of it more like the world dragon's breath, which was already a life and nature type effect, might be a great idea. But that also made him wonder if it might be a better idea to embrace a little bit of every one of the beasts into his immortal spirit. They were all part of him, even if their spaces were separate. Somehow, it just didn't seem right. The system led him in a specific direction, and it wasn't tied to the beasts that he had chosen, so it was likely to go in a more personally focused direction. With that in mind, the plan to give himself regeneration based on the fundamental rules sounded like the best idea. He had a pretty good grasp of many of the rules now. even if most of that was gathered from the beasts as they studied. But he could add all sorts of things to the immortal spirit if he wanted. But how did that saying go? Too many chefs ruins the soup. It was better to keep it focused and on target, instead of risking ruining the flavor of the change. Before starting anything, Carl carefully considered just what he wanted his spirit to be like when he was finished. The goal was to have an immortal spirit that would save you if your body was destroyed, so he was reasonably certain that regeneration was the right plan. He also had chaos-based regeneration from the void body skill that would let him reform from mist if his body was destroyed. That sounded like just the sort of thing that an overpowered immortal should be able to do. Not waiting for someone to resurrect him from his soul alone, but being able to full reform and regenerate if his body was destroyed. But that meant he would also need a bit of protection for his immortal spirit itself. Spreading it out like he did would save some of it, as most skills wouldn't target him through time or affect the fifth-dimensional portion of his soul. That would allow him to save a bit of himself to regenerate from, even in the most dire of situations. But a little focus on giving himself a presence in the chaos plane wouldn't be wrong. Splitting his essence just enough to access, but not enter, the chaos plane. That would let him manipulate his rescue skills to throw his damaged soul somewhere safer than where he was. Then, he could wait to regenerate and use Planeswalker on a portal to come back. Overall, it wouldn't be a terrible safety net. The only question was how he would do that. The immortal spirit didn't really want to be linked to anything but his power matrix. However, the matrix was based on the Chaos Dragon. There had to be a way. However, the more that he thought about it, the more that he realized he simply lacked the knowledge and power to manage such a thing. It wasn't something that he would manage without finding a specialty skill to assist him. It simply couldn't be baked into his immortal spirit. He could, however, evolve his immortal spirit through the void stage while giving it the ability to regenerate him from pure energy. That was something that he could do. It was just the forcible shift between planes that didn't seem possible at the moment. Perhaps for Kara it would be, but not for him. So, Carl got right to work designing the change to his immortal spirit. It was like a runic inscription in a way, and he even designed it with runes, as that helped him visualize the effect that he was trying to create. The fundamental rules, imbued with the essence of world dragon breath to match the shape of his immortal spirit and return life where there was none before. If that wasn't enough, then nothing would be. The real challenge started when Carl tried to actually change the immortal spirit. It wasn't a matter of power. He couldn't simply pour energy into it and convert the whole thing with updated soul energy. Instead, he had to inject the change into the ocean of power that was his immortal spirit, and then wait for it to disperse so that it wasn't rejected. A little bit at a time so that the change was integrated. This was not going to be a quick process, but it wasn't a difficult one, and he could do it in the background as long as he didn't need 100% of his focus for something else. It would also progressively increase his regeneration rate as he finished it, and it would give him a solid base to work from when he finished and wanted to solidify the immortal spirit for ascension. With the process started, Carl focused on the Elder again, to see how the man responded. "I take it that you've picked a direction?" Carl nodded. Using the fundamental rules to create an ongoing regeneration effect from the immortal spirit. I had the understanding to make it regenerate both itself and my body, so I should be able to recover from most things, I believe. I'm already quite good at that, with multiple regeneration abilities and an advanced constitution. This is just a bit of added protection, in case something hits me harder than I could normally recover from. The Elder chuckled. I see that the chaotic nature of the Badger is not all a bad influence on you. You have developed a healthy level of caution, despite your clear intention to do things that might leave you as no more than a fragment of a soul. What can I say? It's a gift.